Hello, welcome to the Fall Assisted Living Association Conference. My name is Jacqueline Gardner and I serve as the chair of our association. We would like to welcome you to our first virtual conference and hope you'll find the content helpful and the system easy to navigate. I did want to offer a few pointers for you as you go through the conference. It is really important to make sure that you follow the agenda very closely and be sure that you're logged into the session at the time that it's listed. This is important to ensure that your CEUs are tracked correctly. Essentially, you can't go backwards. So if you do miss a session, your CEUs will not be counted. It's also important to note that the speaker evaluation are listed as links on the agenda underneath each agenda topic. Nursing, CEUs, and evaluations will also be using this process. So nurses, it's important that you follow these rules as well, both for attending sessions and also for providing feedback for the speakers in the evaluation links. These past 6 months have been incredibly challenging, but particularly so for our industry. Before closing, I just wanted to take a moment and thank you all for all that you have done for our residents across the state. You have been very committed to keeping them safe, working with your individual teams at the communities, and probably committed countless and sleepless hours. So thank you for all that you do for being a part of our residents' lives so selflessly. I hope that you have a wonderful conference and that we will meet again soon in person. Until then, take care, be well, stay safe. Thank you.
My name is Christy Bush, and I'm going to be chatting with you today about isolation and depression among our senior loved ones. I had the wonderful opportunity to speak with you guys last year at the conference. I spoke with you about my Connecting Generations program, and this year is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about isolation and depression, and does one affect the other? Does one cause the other? What does it look like with COVID, et cetera, et cetera. And I will have you guys for about 45 minutes, so make sure we get our timer set so we do not go over, because I do like to talk. Okay, so who am I? A little bit of background on who's going to be chatting with you. Again, my name's Christy Bush. I'm a mom, a wife, a granddaughter. I am definitely a storyteller. You guys are going to get some stories today, and you will also see my passion. I am a passionate advocate for seniors and children, and I own and run K&B Communications. I started it years ago, and I travel the U.S. when travel was a thing. Kind of miss doing that, but doing a lot of education. So I'm excited to be able to be in the education space today with you guys. So let's get started and talk about isolation and depression, and then what we can do. So what we're going to take today, or what we're going to do today, is an in-depth examination of what to look for and how to prevent current and future complications. So we're going to do an overview of signs of loneliness and depression, and then we're going to do an overview of the effect of lockdown measures. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about how lockdown measures, how COVID is affecting our seniors, and how it's leading to loneliness and creating depression. What are family and staff noticing? You know, what are you guys seeing? What are your families noticing with our seniors? And I've spoken to several of you, so I'm going to share that with you as well. And then what are our challenges? What are we faced with? And then how can we overcome these challenges to help combat isolation and depression among our seniors? So again, I'm hoping that I will be able to give you a lot of tips and tools as we go forward that you're going to be able to use in your facilities. So we have to, or we don't have to, but I think we should start the program with, how do you define depression? Because I think some people define it differently, because there are different levels, if you will. And we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at what does it look like in our seniors, which actually looks different from was going to see a young person. I'm going to stick myself in that category from a young person. But let's see, how do you define it? Depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. It's also called major, or can be called major depressive disorder or clinical depression, and it affects how you feel, think, and behave, and it can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. And we're going to talk about what those look like. I think it's incredibly important that we know, so we will be able to identify what our seniors are going through. So this is, I think, an incredibly important statement. Loneliness and isolation are two of the leading causes of depression in seniors. What do you guys think? This is where I wish I was with you so we could have, a little bit of dialogue. I could chat back and forth with you, but what do you think? Just think about that for a second. Do you feel like loneliness and isolation are two of the leading causes of depression? I do. I absolutely do. And I think that you are probably seeing that now in your facilities. Our seniors were the first group, as you well know, to be locked down due to COVID. Now, for good reason, we want to make sure that they are protected. And this virus, by the nature of what it is targeting our seniors. It is targeting those that have some health struggles. So for good reason, we made sure that we sort of started lockdown very soon with them. Here's the problem. What we are seeing now is, while there are a lot of us that have gone back to some sense of normalcy, we're out, you and I are out, we're working. If you have kids, they may or may not have gone back to school. And so we do have the ability to leave our homes now. We do have the ability to have a different scenery now. Our seniors are still not in that space. And it has been since March. So we're looking at 7 months, going on 8 months, that they've been locked down. And I truly believe this is leading to a national health crisis that we are just starting to see the beginnings of, and we are going to see the results of in the years to come. So I think, again, or I know why this is so important that we talk about this today. So seniors experiencing depression, 6.5 million of the 35 million Americans aged 65 or older experience depression. And you're going to hear me a lot say pre-COVID numbers. These are pre-COVID statistics. The reason being is because we are still living with lockdown with our seniors. We are still living in the COVID era of not knowing how this is going to affect all of us. So while those numbers are staggering at 6.5 million, the reality is they're going to be even higher. They're going to be elevated due to the nature of what we are having to deal with. So I want us to continue to think about that. Causes of depression. You guys may already know this, but I think it's a really great refresher for us to be able to discuss this right now, a really great reminder, and then I'm going to relate it back again to some of the issues that we are seeing because of lockdown. So let's just talk about the causes of depression. So health problems, clearly. Illness, disability, chronic or severe pain, cognitive decline, damage to your body during surgery or sickness can all be contributing factors to depression. As we know, as we age, a lot of these things increase for us. We have an increased illness, we have increased disabilities, a lot of comorbidities. We keep hearing that with, a COVID diagnosis, and if you have a comorbidity of diabetes or hypertension or whatever it looks like, heart issues, then that contributes to survivability, or it contributes to how sick that you get. And so as we know, our seniors typically have a lot of these issues, and so that can create a sense of depression. Loneliness and isolation, factors such as living alone, a dwindling social circle due to deaths or relocation, Decreased mobility due to illness or a loss of driving privileges can trigger depression. So one of the things I want to note here is while many of our seniors pre-COVID may have been lonely, they were not necessarily always isolated. And I think this is a huge point to consider. So they may have been lonely in the space that they missed their family. They may have been lonely in the space that their family doesn't visit as much as they would like for them to. They may be lonely in the space that they miss their spouse. Maybe their spouse passed away. So they're experiencing that feeling of loneliness. But they were not necessarily isolated. They could still play games. They could still have community, dinner, breakfast, lunch if they wanted to. They could still enjoy the activities that were brought in from outside the facility. So all these factors did not create a sense of isolation, but they could feel loneliness. What we are seeing now with loneliness and isolation is both due to lockdown for COVID, which is why it is so important that we recognize the signs and symptoms as we're going to go forward in this program, and then what can we do? Loss of privileges is huge. You guys know that. Quick story for you. My grandfather passed away last year. He was 96 years old and probably one of the most stubborn humans on the planet. So he was living in an assisted living in Birmingham, and one of the biggest issues that bothered him the most, that just he hated it, was that he couldn't get in his car and he could not just drive to where he wanted to go. This was a problem for him because when he wanted something, and you guys may have some residents like this, he wanted it right then. And so he decided one day last year, I'll never forget my aunt calling me. She said, guess what he's done? He decided last year he wanted to go to the CVS across the street. Nobody could take him for whatever reason, but I think he had had just enough, and he was not wheelchair bound, but he did have a motorized wheelchair. He had some back issues. He put himself in that wheelchair, was not a lockdown facility, and he drove himself across 4 lanes of incredibly busy traffic in Birmingham to get to the CVS. No idea what he was going to buy. Did not get hit, but he sure did drive himself across those 4 lanes. And I think what triggered that, other than the fact that, again, he was a little bit stubborn, there's a sense of just really wanting to connect and wanting to be able to have that autonomy to be able to get out. So I know you guys have noticed that probably with your residents if they are facing that. So it can lead to depression. I think he was really depressed after we all had to have the long, hard conversation with him about how dangerous it was, to which he said, I'm fine. I made it, didn't I? Yeah. So, reduced sense of purpose. Retirement can bring with it a loss of identity, status, self-confidence, and financial security, and increase the risk of depression. Physical limitations on activities you used to enjoy can also impact your sense of purpose. So being able to get up and do dishes, being able to get up and do anything, to be able to move, can impact a sense of purpose. And as we go through this, you're going to hear me talk about purpose, and you're going to hear me talk about hope. And so if as humans, we are hardwired to have a sense of purpose and to need a sense of hope to really want to be able to move forward. And so when you take away that sense of purpose, and as we're going through this COVID, take away a sense of hope, meaning they feel like things are never going to change, they're going to be stuck in the same situation, will lead to depression. Fears. This is huge. These include a fear of death or dying, as well as anxiety over financial problems or health issues. Here's the thing with fear, you guys. As y'all know, with COVID, it has created a massive fear landscape for all of us. I've experienced it. I'm sure you have experienced it. Is the unknown. It is waiting for the other shoe to drop. I have to believe that it is much bigger for our seniors. And here's one of the reasons why. They were one of the first groups to be locked down. They were also one of the first groups to start experiencing the true deadly nature of this virus, which means if, some residents lost friends, they lost loved ones sometimes many friends, sometimes many loved ones, because as this virus worked its way through some facilities, there were several people that passed away from it. So the fear of knowing that you were in a lockdown situation and you cannot leave that building, but in that same building, you're watching your friends and loved ones pass away. Huge fear factor, absolute catalyst for depression. Recent bereavements, the death of friends, family members, and pets, or the loss of a spouse or partner are common causes of depression. And again, like I was just talking about, as we're looking at this, watching their friends and loved ones pass away, huge cause of depression. So physical signs of depression, I just want you guys to be able to have this. You can write it down, print it off, keep it with you. But I want us to have a reminder, and you probably already know some of this, but I want us to have a reminder of what are the physical signs of depression, so we can recognize them. I believe, yes, some of these things do already happen with our senior loved ones, not so much always meaning that they are depressed, but I do think we need to pay attention, especially if any of this is elevated. So sadness or feelings of despair, unexplained or aggravated aches and pains, loss of interest in socializing or hobbies, weight loss or loss of appetite. And going back to that loss of interest in socializing or hobbies, when we do move out of this, when we do move to the other side of it, and our residents are able to get together and enjoy one another's company and enjoy all the other things that are going on, the activities that used to come in. If you have residents that used to love being involved, that were at every activity, you guys know what I'm talking about, always involved, right? But yet they don't want to show up. They don't want to be a part of it. Then we have to take a huge look at that, because that's a really, really big red flag for us. Sleep disturbances, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, oversleeping, or daytime sleepiness. You guys know this. Here's some more. Loss of self-worth, worries about being a burden, feelings of worthlessness or self-loathing, slow movement or speech, increased use of alcohol or other drugs, fixation on death. If they are constantly worried about dying, or worried about, their friends and loved ones dying, thoughts of suicide. And I will tell you guys this, we had an increase, a huge increase in senior suicide and elderly suicide the very first month of lockdown. And these were not seniors that were in facilities. These were seniors that are at home, but they were coming to sort of, outside activities and to different centers. And we had a huge increase in suicide because they could no longer get out and have something to look forward to doing. And so we did see an increase here. Memory problems, neglecting personal care, like if they're skipping meals, if they're forgetting meds, if they're neglecting their personal hygiene, these are all things that, symptoms and signs that we need to be looking for depression. So I want to talk about for just a minute with our seniors is, why does it often go untreated? What do we often mistake depression for? Do we think of it as something else? And so many people think that depression is a normal part of aging, and it doesn't have to be, but we do think that it's just a sort of a natural reaction to chronic illness, loss, and social transition. And that elderly people, they do face noteworthy challenges to their connections through loss. They also face medical vulnerability and mortality. And for the elderly population, depression can come in different sizes and shapes. And many elderly people and their families just do not recognize the symptoms of depression. They will just brush it off. And they aren't aware that this is a medical illness and don't know how it is treated. And the fact that it is very treatable. We're going to talk about that. Others may mistake the symptoms of depression as signs of dementia. And that is one space that I do want us to pay attention to. I don't know if you're noticing in your facilities, our dementia seniors, our dementia patients, residents are struggling. They're struggling so much right now. I feel like that has been one of our hardest hit loved ones. So Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's, stroke, thyroid. Many times we just sort of think that's the problem. And so maybe it's not always a physical manifestation of that kind of an issue. Maybe there's some untreated depression that we have to dig a little bit deeper to be able to figure out. But absolutely, we should be taking a look at if there is something there. Many older persons think that depression is a character flaw and are worried about being teased or humiliated. They may blame themselves for their illness, and they are too ashamed to get help. How many of you guys know this? How many of you know of a resident, or if you have, your grandparents or your parents? I know my dad, it doesn't exist. He is of the, as he says, the suck it up generation, meaning we just sucked it up. There's no ADD. There's no anxiety. There was no depression. We didn't have to, as he has said before, we didn't have time for that. You just sucked it up. You didn't talk about it. You just went forward. Just kept moving. And that's not healthy. That's not always where we need to be. That's not the space that we need to be in, right? So older depressed individuals often have severe feelings of sadness, but these feelings frequently are not acknowledged or openly shown. Sometimes when asked if they are depressed, the answer is no. Like if you were to ask my dad that, he would say, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. No big deal. No worries. Some general clues that someone may be experiencing depression are, again, like we just talked about, persistent and vague complaints, help seeking, moving in a slow manner, and demanding behavior. If you guys have someone in your facilities, you'll know this, that person that is just overly demanding of your time, of your staff's time. Many times that can be a sign or a symptom of depression, and they are fighting through it. They are asking for attention. They are asking for someone to, hey, come pay attention to me. And then maybe they don't know how to say, I'm sad. They don't know how to say, I need someone, or I just want someone to sit with me, or I'm worried, or I'm scared. But they become very, very demanding. And so that's why I think it's incredibly important that we provide them a safe space to be able to say, I need help. I'm worried. I'm concerned. So having that check-in, how are you doing today, Mrs. Jones? How are you feeling today, Mrs. Jones? But seeing if we can pay attention to also not just the external clues, but really what their language is telling you. Let's see. I just thought this was really interesting and just a really good point to note. Are symptoms of depression different in older persons than in younger persons? Yes. It's very interesting. So we've also just talked about this. Sometimes in older persons, it's memory problems, confusion, social withdrawal, loss of appetite, inability to sleep, irritability. There's delusions and hallucinations. Sometimes with our elderly that we will not see in young adults, adults at middle age, in kids. We do not so much see those symptoms. For those of us that are in that age group, you may see social withdrawal, loss of appetite, weight loss, inability to sleep. But for us, some of the things that are manifesting with our seniors, you just do not see. So I think it's just important and interesting that we know what to look for, that we're not just thinking, oh, I or someone my age is a typical sign of depression and thinking that is the only sign, and then expecting to see that or looking for that in our seniors, if that makes sense. Making sure that we are understanding they may present in a completely different manner than you and I would present. So isolation's effect on mental health. So as we've been talking about it, do you guys feel like isolation can affect our mental health? Can or does it cause depression? 100%. Absolutely, I believe that it can. All of the research is showing that, all the statistics are showing that. Here's something to think about. Social isolation is associated with about a 50% increased risk of dementia and other serious medical conditions. That is huge. That is so huge. So like I was just talking about, at the very beginning of this, loneliness and isolation being different, but that our residents, our seniors, are experiencing both. They are experiencing loneliness. They are also experiencing social isolation. I saw some information that I was reading this morning that said social isolation can affect the body as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day can. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. So it just goes to show you that it absolutely has an effect on the body. And I think our dementia patients are, like I said, I think they're feeling it so much right now. They are having a lack of stimulation. They're not able to get out. They're not able to have a change of scenery. They're not able to have movement. And as we know, what we know about our dementia patients, all of these things are so critically important, which is why we are seeing such an increase of issues and serious medical problems. So pre-COVID, like I was saying, you guys are going to hear me talk a lot about pre-COVID numbers because we just do not have the statistics. We do not have the information right now because we are just moving still through COVID. And so we are not going to have really great information until we are a year or two on the backside of this. And then I think we're going to start seeing how much it truly has affected our seniors, how much has it affected all of us. But I think we're going to be able to have more information as we go through. Also, you guys, I don't know why this screen picked up that number 1. I loaded it differently, but it is still there. So forgive me, there's like a typo of a number 1. I see it floating. Anyway, health risks of loneliness, although it's hard to measure social isolation, it is so hard to measure that, to put an actual number on it, and loneliness precisely. There is strong evidence that many adults age 50 and older are socially isolated or lonely in ways that put their health at risk. And again, I know I keep repeating this and I keep saying, but I think it is so important. Our loved ones, our seniors, are both. They are experiencing both. Recent studies found that social isolation significantly increased a person's risk of premature death from all causes, a risk that may rival those of smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. These are huge, you guys. Social isolation was associated with about a 50% increased risk of dementia. Poor social relationships characterized by social isolation or loneliness was associated with a 29% increased risk of heart disease. Have you guys ever heard of someone dying of a broken heart? And while we feel like that may be just like a silly saying, 100% believe that it does create issues. If you have a couple that's been together for 60 years and one passes away, you guys know as well as I do, right? There sometimes is a decline for the one that is still here. 32% increased risk of stroke. Loneliness was associated with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Loneliness among heart failure patients was associated with a nearly 4 times increased risk of death, 68% increased risk of hospitalization, and a 57% increased risk of emergency department visits. These statistics are going to go up. So as we go forward, I want us to think about what can we do to help navigate this, to help make this a little less painful, to help our residents and make sure that those statistics just do not get out of control. What can we do to make sure that we're meeting their needs? So, what are staff and family noticing? I think this is important to talk about. I think that we all can learn from one another. I love to share ideas. I love to share stories. So I encourage you guys to do that, to talk with one another about what you're doing at your facility. Maybe someone can do it at their facility. But one of the things that we are seeing is increased hospital visits due to failure to thrive. We are seeing an increased cognitive decline. Dementia patients, for one. Again, huge population that is really feeling these effects. And then we're seeing increased withdrawal. So what is happening is, as the beginning of this, when it first started as our patients and residents, we're still continuing to reach out and still continue to have some hope that it was going to get better. As we are getting to be 8 months deep into this, we are seeing a lot of withdrawal. That is self-protection, that's a loss of hope, and that is a huge, huge, huge flag and concern when it comes to depression. So what are the modalities that we've used in the past to combat depression? So of course we're using medication, psychotherapy, therapy. There's even been electroconvulsive therapy used in conjunction with everything else, and that has shown promising results for our seniors. And so this is pre-COVID. Now, clearly we are still going to be using our medication, our pharmacologic, our psychotherapy, all of these things. We're going to be using all of these tools, all of these modalities to be able to help our seniors move forward. It's incredibly important. However, the most effective way, and research shows us, and you guys know this, you don't need a bunch of research to tell you this, what has worked in the past to help combat depression is a combination of medicinal therapies along with behavioral. So think playing mind games, whether it is categories or dominoes or whatever card games it is, or whatever that looks like, to sort of help keep the mind engaged. That is one of the ways that we have, one of the things that we've used in the past that works beautifully. Getting physical, getting up and moving, so important. So important. Staying connected with friends is always, a really great way to combat depression, because you're having that connection, because we are, and I want to stop here for just a second and kind of talk to you guys about this. We are biologically hardwired for connection. We are biologically hardwired for touch, for hugs. We are biologically hardwired to have face-to-face interactions. I love this. I could talk for 14 days on it. It is so interesting to me how we are hardwired for one another. Babies, how they thrive is, from touch and attention, is exactly how it continues for the rest of our life as young adults and as seniors as well. Maybe even more so, because they start to feel that sort of pull with everyone pulling away, and they miss that connection. So we have to have that connection to thrive as humans. And so that is part of what has worked in the past when we were trying to combat depression, by making sure that they are, given a hug, that we're talked to, that we're loving on, we're giving counseling, whatever that is, face-to-face interaction. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a hugger. And so who, after all this is over and we can freely hug folks again without worrying about getting this virus, who's going to run right out and just start hugging everybody, all the people? It'll be me. It'll probably be me. So if I see you, I may hug you. It's okay. Anyway, another thing that we were doing is adult day health programs, picking up a new hobby, volunteering, caring for a pet. I love pet therapy. You guys know how wonderful that is. And then spending time with loved ones. So here's the problem, as y'all know, and you're probably sitting there going, that sounds great. We were doing that, but now we can't. So what do? We can't have the physical aspect because we can't get up and move around with our friends, which also keeps us connected with our friends. We're having to stay socially distanced. There's not any, adult programs available right now. Picking up a new hobby is great to keep the mind engaged, but again, it's going to be an isolated solo hobby probably. We're not volunteering. Outside activities like, pets and so on and so forth are not being brought in. And spending time with loved ones is not happening at all. And so this is where we are running into serious issues. So what has worked for us in the past, our past modalities for treating isolation and depression, is not going to serve us right now. It will going forward when we are released and able to move back into the space of all of these things. But what can we do right now? What can we do with the space that we are given right now? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to try to give you a few ideas. I know you guys probably feel like your hands are tied. So what is our biggest challenge? Our biggest challenge is socially distancing, keeping our residents safe while still meeting their mental health needs. I don't know about you guys, but this picture breaks my heart. It used to be where, you know, our seniors could pick up their granddaughter and love them and play with them without any fear. And then we have what we have to do now, you know, with masks and socially distance and apart and dividers and all the things. So it's incredibly, incredibly hard. I know that you guys are feeling that as well, but they are certainly feeling it. So I want to, this is just a reminder, a list. You can, you know, tell your residents this or tell the family members this. It's also a reminder for you guys. If you know of a resident that is experiencing depression, here are some of the things that we want to do. You know, we're reaching out to a friend, speaking with a pastor, calling our doctor, reaching out to a local mental health facility, contacting counselors, and most definitely if we have thoughts of suicide or if we have plans for suicide, we are calling 911. We are making sure that we are getting those immediate services wrapped around our residents immediately, and you guys know that. But I think it's important that we also remind our loved ones that are still having conversations, our families that are still having conversations with their loved ones. I think it's just a really good reminder. So what are we currently doing? These are some of the things that I have learned that we are doing in some facilities. Maybe you're doing it, maybe you're not, so it might be something that you can take back with you. We are doing window visits with loved ones, which are amazing and awesome in their own right. While we miss that connection, we miss being able to hug. So one of the ways that our new way to combat depression and to be able to stay connected is that face-to-face contact that I just talked about that we are so hardwired for. So window visiting is giving us that connection and we are loving it. You can bring pictures and be able to talk through the window. Some of us are doing socially distanced patio visits. So maintaining that 6 feet, 12 feet, whatever it is apart. And then some places have actually put up clear partitions. So you can talk, take the mask off, maybe if you're 12 feet apart with a clear partition. Or most of us, I think, probably are continuing to use the mask no matter what, just to be safe. So we're doing that. Again, it's not that physical contact, but it is giving us that face-to-face contact. What these visits are also doing are giving our residents hope. They're giving them something to look forward to. And that, you guys, is going to be one of the biggest way that you can combat what your residents are going for. Helping them to have something to look forward to. Whether it is a patio visit, whether it is a window visit. And again, here we've got FaceTime, Zoom calls, something to look forward to help them understand that this is not always going to be like this. Another tip and tool that I want to give you, have them write down the top 10 things they want to do once this is over. So where do they want to go? Who do they want to see? Who do they want to spend time with? Make a list. They can make a list every week. What am I going to do the very minute that I can go, out to go shopping? What am I going to do the very minute that I get to see my granddaughter? That gives them hope and things to look forward to, and posting that list in their room, talking to them about it. Hey, what are you guys going to do? What are you going to go eat? Where are you going to go visit? If we can continue that stream of hope, that is going to combat the feeling of isolation and depression, the feeling that, hey, this is not always going to be forever. Community letters. I know of a lot of communities that have appealed to churches and to different groups in the community that are actually sending letters to the facility. Just words of encouragement, poems, just sweet pictures, that kind of thing for the residents. And then a few of us are doing socially distanced games again, which is really awesome. I'm encouraged to see that we are distancing with a mask, but trying to get back just a little bit of our normalcy. So this is a program that I want to talk to you guys about that I'm so excited. It is free, and I think that you will love it. I fell in love with it. It is called Big and Mini. You can go to this website and look at it, and what it does is it connects young adults or young people with seniors, and it is awesome. It was on the Today Show. I saw it on there. I immediately pulled up and started looking at it, but They help get you connected. Like, you have to go through this whole process and then get your information. It's safe. And of course, you have to know how to use a device. You've got to have a computer, an iPad, or a phone, but you are able to connect. And so the relationships that have been built and fostered through this program are beautiful. I wish I had come up with this program because I love it. I mean, we've got relationships that are built where they're talking about what they're going to do in the future, and as soon as lockdown's over, we're going to come see one another and we're going to have like a steak dinner. That was one of the groups they were talking about, between a young gentleman and a lady, I think, that was probably in her 70s. There was another one where there was this young lady that had been hooked up with a senior, and they had formed such an amazing relationship, but the senior lives in Europe and they are already planning the trip. They're already talking about everything they're going to go see. They're already talking about all the things they're going to go do. And so while this may be appropriate for some of your residents and some not, right, depending on those that can get out or can't, I still think it's a wonderful idea, because it does give them an opportunity to be able to talk to someone new, to be able to look forward to a new and different conversation, to be able to hear about things all across the world. It's just a really cool program. And I think that you guys would like it. So you can go on there and take a look at it. This is my program. This is our Connecting Our Generations program. I talked to you guys about this last year. And this is, I come into facilities either virtually right now, because we're living our Zoom life, or in person, socially distanced, which I can do as well, and teach seniors how to get online and teach them how to use Facebook, teach them how to use Instagram, excuse me, to be able to connect with one another. So before they can do any of these programs, they've got to know how to use a device. So the very first thing that we do is teach them online safety. We teach them how to stay safe in that space. Our two biggest at-risk groups are teens and seniors when it comes to predator activity. And now more than ever, predators are reaching out to prey on our vulnerable. And seniors, being in the spot that they are in, they are looking for connection. They are looking for someone to talk to. So we want to make sure they are staying safe in that space. So part of the program that I have is to educate seniors in that space, make sure they are staying safe, that they are doing what they were supposed to be doing online. And the rest of it is just either teaching the staff or teaching the residents how to set up accounts. You know, if it's not me, there are so many other tech people that can do this for you guys. Reach out to them. You may have someone in your facility that can do it. But like this quote says, only 34% of Americans 65 and older are using social media. And that's such a downfall, because like we talked about, as we're going forward and looking for new modalities, we want to make sure that we're staying connected. We want to make sure that we are instilling hope. We want to make sure that we are instilling excitement. And I can't begin to tell you the look of hope and excitement and fun that have been on so many faces of seniors that I've worked with once they can pull up Facebook and they talk to people they haven't talked to in 20 or 30 years, or they can see pictures of their grandkids every single day. The cool thing, the click of a button, they're connected to anyone, anywhere in the entire world, just like that Big and Mini program. So that is, I think, another thing that we do not want to lose is, again, it's not face-to-face necessarily, or excuse me, it's not in person. We're at least seeing a face. We're at least doing, you know, a Zoom call or Skype or whatever that looks like. And these are just, you know, some of the apps that they can use to continue to remain connected. It's beautiful and amazing. So this is just an outline of it. Set up everything, utilize the program. Again, in saying, hey, you know, Mrs. Jones, on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, we're going to come by and we're going to help you FaceTime your daughter, or we are going to help you pull up your Facebook account so you can see your grandson's pictures of first day at school. This does so much. It does so much to combat isolation and depression and loneliness. It really is sort of the new way that we've got to move forward into and lean into until we can sort of get back to that, because nothing takes the place of face-to-face, in person. Nothing ever will. But we can use our devices to at least give us that semblance of connection. All right. Let's see. And that's just a flyer for my program. If you're interested, let me know. This is another program. You guys may already be doing this. This is another tip and tool for you to use. Pen pal programs. There's a lot of facilities I've seen that are doing this, and I love it. Our seniors are of the letter generation. They're the written generation. It's a lost art. I wish we all still did it, but they love getting a letter. They love getting letters with pictures, right? So it helps them to feel connected. So having a pen pal program is absolutely beautiful. I know that there's a lot of high schools that will give credit, community credit to their high school students for being a part of a program like this. So it may be something you want to start in your community. Just reach out to your local schools and you know, maybe you can kind of put that in place. Again, I love it. It gives them a sense of hope and gives them a sense of connection. Let's see. Last but not least, care packages. You guys may already be doing this. You may not. Again, that's just to sort of expand on the pen pal situation. And that is having someone that is sending, you know, a resident their favorite gum, favorite candle, favorite book, along with a letter once a month or twice a month or whatever that looks like. And that means getting some community involvement, or getting, you know, families a little more involved in that space where they are providing those care packages. But again, it just gives a sense of connection, and it brings a sense of joy, and it gives them something to look forward to until we can sort of move back to the modalities that we were using. And I think some of these, quite frankly, need to stay. I think that would be beautiful if they stayed. All right. And I think that is probably it. That's it, because I think I'm at the end of my time. I could talk to you guys forever, clearly, but I promised 45 minutes, and we are almost on the nose with that. So I'm going to leave you with this quote: "Family are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain as one." Meaning, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, no matter how many times our little branches all go out in different directions, many times our seniors will feel like they're left out of that, right? As we all grow and move, but our roots are the same. They always remain there, and that need for connection always remains there. It is always going to be there. So helping them to find ways to connect, to meet the needs of, or meet their needs for connection, to combat isolation and depression. I think we have to look at these new modalities going forward. And then when we get past this, I think it's going to be, or it can be, a really cool blend of all of it. And hopefully we will see a decrease in depression and a decrease in all of the other issues that we've been talking about today. So that is it. I hope that you guys have found some tips and tools, or learned some tips and tools as we've been talking, that you can take back to your facilities and be able to use, and really, really be able to provide for your families and your residents. If you have any questions about this program, or about my Connecting Generations program, or any of this information, you can see my contact stuff is there on the screen. And if you're in the Facebook or Instagram space, that's where you can find me as well. So again, hang in there. You probably feel like your hands are a little bit tied, but I promise they aren't. Things will be getting better. But as we go forward, hopefully we can use all this new stuff to, you know, to stay connected. Thanks so much.